Hi guys. Let me fix this lighting. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode as told by Batty, and I of course am Batty. I don't know why I just got in like a so good mood, because I did wake up in a good mood, but praise God that my mood is changing. Okay, so since you guys clicked on this video, you know we're going to be talking about lock or starter lock do's and don't. Starter lock do's and don'ts. Before I get into this, disclaimer, don't put too much pressure on yourself to have perfect locks. There is no such thing as perfect locks. This journey is your journey, and it's special because it is your journey, and it's no one else can have the journey that you're having. No one else can have the journey that I've had with my locks, and that's why everyone's locks are special. So before I start this, disclaimer, don't put pressure on yourself when you first started your locks for your locks to be perfect, because along the way you will learn and you will adjust to what your hair needs. So let's get started. I have a list on my handy dandy phone here, of course, so I'm not rambling, because you guys know I love to ramble. So yeah, I was trying to decide if I wanted to go like one do and then one don't, or just go through all the do's. I'm just gonna go through all the do's so I don't mix up stuff up. Okay, so the first do that I have on my list, do protect your hair at night. Protecting your hair means you're using either satin or silk on your head. You don't want to use anything cotton, because cotton draws moisture out of your hair. The same way if you go to sleep without anything on your hair, your sheets, your pillowcase is going to draw the moisture out of your hair. If you do have satin sheets and satin pillowcases, or silks or satin pillowcases, then that's okay. You necessarily don't have to go to sleep with something on your head. I still would, because there is dust and dirt in your bed, especially lint. You don't want lint to get in your hair because it can get built up in your locks. So always protect your hair when you're going to sleep. Even if you do have silk and satin sheets in a pillowcase, I still would suggest sleeping with something on your hair, for the fact so you don't get dirt build up and lint in your locks. Always sleep with something on your hair at night. Number 2, I'm not even gonna make points of this, but the second thing on my list of do with starter locks, do deep clean your hair. I don't necessarily have a time frame as to when you can necessarily start, because everyone's hair is different. I know with me personally, I didn't start deep cleaning my hair until probably 2 years into my lock journey, for the simple fact that I just did not know anything about deep cleaning and soaking my locks in apple cider vinegar and baking soda, sometimes lemon. I just didn't know that was a thing, or that I need to be doing that. So that's probably one of my biggest regrets as far as my locks. Gratefully, I don't have that much buildup in my locks. Still have buildup, so I feel like buildup is inevitable with locks. But if you want to minimize buildup, definitely deep clean in the beginning stages of your locks. When I say beginning stages, if I had to put like a time frame of when you should probably start, I would say at least past the 5-month mark, you should probably start deep cleaning your locks. That's just my opinion. If you guys have anything that worked for you, you already started your locks and you already deep cleaned your locks, comment below and tell me what time frame you guys adhere to. What time frame did you start washing or deep cleaning your starter locks, soaking them in apple cider vinegar, baking soda? But you want to start doing that early on in your lock journey, so it just helps with controlling the buildup in your locks. I feel like if I knew that earlier on, I would have less buildup in my locks than I do. Again, I feel like buildup is inevitable in your locks. I'm sure there will be people out here that say, oh, I don't have buildup, but honestly, I think it's like low-key impossible not to have buildup, especially with locks, because you're not combing your hair, and you know, dirt is like inevitable, low-key. Do let your hair do its thing. I remember early on in my lock journey, my almost brother-in-law, they're engaged, they're gonna get married this year, but my sister's fiance, he had locks before me, and he would like always, because I always told him like I really wanted to start my locks, and he would always like encourage me to start them. And once I did start them, I always like had them like tied up in a ponytail, and he would be like, why don't you just let them let them hang? Why don't you just let them, I don't know. He said something about gravity and gravity helping to pull my hair down, but the main point he was getting at is just let your hair do its thing. And I was like, oh, he's kind of right. I should let my hair do its thing. So after we had that conversation, he encouraged me to let my locks do its thing. I let my locks do its thing. This was probably, I'm almost 6 years locked. This was when I was in college, so this had to be like probably 4 years ago, maybe even 5. But Let your locks do its thing. Your locks are going to form regardless. Your locks are going to form regardless. Don't try to speed up the process. I mean, there are some things you can do like saltwater spray to help your hair lock faster, but I would suggest you just letting your hair do its thing because it's gonna lock regardless. Regardless of what you do, if you leave your hair and don't comb it, it's gonna lock. So let your hair do its thing. Like I said, your locks are gonna do what they want anyway, so you might as well just accept that your hair is gonna do what it's want and let it do what it wants. I talked about this more. I'm not really a stickler for like having my hair look neat. I just took my braids out from a retwist I did a retwist and braids, and I just took them out like this week. I wore the braids for honestly probably a month, and as you can see, my scalp isn't the neatest, but I don't mind when my scalp looks like this. I don't mind at all, even if it was a little messier and like a little more puffy at the top. And because I still have somewhat of a retwist, you can still kind of see, but I really like letting my locks do its thing. I don't mind the messy look of locks. You know how Lauryn Hill would like wear her locks. I didn't mind that look at all. So let your hair do its thing. Don't put too much pressure on your locks to look so neat and put together all the time. I just feel like it's unsustainable and it's just unnecessary pressure on your hair. Like, come on. Okay, so the next thing, steam your hair in the shower. I talked about this probably in like my moisturizing video or maybe in another video, but you should steam your hair in the shower. You don't have a steamer, that's not a problem. Steaming your hair in the shower is probably one of the easiest ways to get moisture into your locks. When I had starter locks, well, when they weren't even starter locks because they were honestly locks and I was still doing this, but when my locks were like shoulder length, I would just leave them, literally just leave them hanging in the shower. Close the door, make sure the shower is hot enough for steam to be produced, but you want to close the door so the steam is trapped into the bathroom, and just leave your hair out in the steam. Well, your hair will absorb the moisture in the steam. It's just good for your hair, good for moisturizing your hair, keeping it moisturized. Make sure it's not getting too dry. I literally would do this every time I got out the shower, and honestly, I would, even at the end of my shower, I would like take some water and just run it through my hair. They weren't damp. Well, they were damp, but they weren't like dripping, soaking wet. It was just like something like, you know, just a light moisture. You can't moisturize your hair with oil because oil has no moisture in it. Oil seals moisture in. You have to have water in the mix when you're moisturizing your hair because water is moist. But no, water does give you moisture, so that's why you have to have some type of water in the mix, whether it's in your product or just water itself. But that's one thing I would do all the time with my starter locks, and it honestly made, I feel like, the biggest difference in my locks. Water helps locks to swell, which means they get bigger. And don't think in a sense like, oh, my locks are about to be super thick. If you have like smaller locks, your locks aren't gonna come out looking like, you know, super thick. It just helps your lock to bud and swell. Swelling is good for your locks. Water is great for your locks. Whoever told y'all the water is not good for your locks is lying, because water is amazing for your locks and it'll help your hair lock. So don't sleep on water. And after I would get out the shower, after steaming my hair, I would just rub some oil in my hair to help seal in the moisture of the steam. Next, I'm trying not to take too long because I want to get through all these points. So we're at 8 minutes. We're doing kind of good. Let's speed it up. Use mostly natural-based products. I don't think I have to go too far into this. My whole journey, I've used mostly natural-based products. The only time I haven't used naturally-based products is when I was like dyeing my hair. I don't use any curl creams. I don't use leave-in conditioners. I don't do any of that. The only stuff I use to moisturize my hair is shea butter, oil, water. Shea butter, oil, water. That is my staple. That's been my staple. I've literally been doing it for almost the 6 years I've been locked. I'll be 6 years locked in April, and I've literally been doing shea butter, oil, water my whole journey, and it's never not worked for me. It's what works for me. So yeah, natural products always best. Love the journey yourself and evolve with your hair. I kind of talked about this at the beginning of the video. You have to love the journey, because if you're not, especially if you're starting from like legit starter locks and not like skipping the kind of process and going to instant locks or like lock extensions, if you're starting with finger coils, braids, two-strand twists, whatever, you really have to like key into loving yourself, because there's like this whole idea of the ugly stage in the lock process, and to some people I guess it could be ugly, but for me personally, I started my locks to learn to love myself regardless of what my hair looked like. Not saying that starter locks are ugly face, because I don't think they're ugly at all. Honestly, some days, a lot of days, I do think about like starting my locks over to just go through that process again and just watch my hair evolve and grow and start to lock. You know, I don't know, it was just a beautiful process. I loved my hair in every stage that my locks were locked. You should too. Don't, well, we'll get to the don'ts, but love yourself in this process, because that's the only thing that's really going to get you through this process. Not like it's a hard or like discouraging. I mean, I guess it could be discouraging. Everyone's different, but the biggest key in this journey is to learn to love yourself and evolve with your hair. I read this quote like a couple years ago that said, as my hair grows, I grow with my hair. Your hair, it really just tells your story. You know, I feel like when you are not feeling well, when you're not feeling yourself, your hair can definitely feel that, and it shows. You know, when you're feeling good, your hair looks good, your hair feels good, it's healthy. When you're not, you know, your hair kind of just gives, you know, it gives the answers as to if you're doing good or not. So evolve with your hair, grow with your hair. You know, just learn to love yourself and find yourself in this life as your hair starts to find its locks. So yeah, I'll drop my phone. Let's go to the don'ts. 12 minutes. Okay, the don't be a product junkie. Product junkies lead to build up. I don't think I have to go really in depth to this, but it's not good to be hopping from product to product. Find what works for you and stick with it. Routine is everything. Routine is everything. Of course, it's okay to mix it up here and there so your hair doesn't become like adjusted to your routine and the products you're using, but ultimately routine is everything and consistency is key. Don't be a product junkie, leads to build up. Don't retwist too often. Retwisting too often leads to thinning of the locks. Yeah, it just leads to thinning of the locks. Don't retwist too often, it's not good. Also, in the beginning stages of your locks, you don't want to retwist too often because it can stop your locks from reaching how thick they were going to originally reach, or like thick in a way of like how big they were going to get, you know? Because if you retwist too much, you're putting stress on your scalp. It's gonna thin it and your locks aren't going to expand to the size that they probably were going to. So don't retwist too often, but you also wanna make sure that you are retwisting enough so your hair doesn't get too crazy at the roots and you don't have too much matting going on at your roots. I think that's key too, just finding that safe number as far as how long to wait for a retwist. You don't wanna wait too long, but you don't wanna do it too fast, but you don't wanna wait too long either, if that makes sense. Honestly, I think a good rule of thumb is every month. That may even be too much depending on your hair type and depending on how long your retwists do last. So I think that also goes into it, how long your retwist lasts. But I think a good rule of thumb is a month and a half. I think a month and a half is probably a little better, honestly. But yeah, don't retwist too often. Don't change your methods of retwisting too often. Don't do that. Like, what do you mean, Brittany? Don't go from palm rolling to interlocking and then back to palm rolling and then back to interlocking, because you're gonna have inconsistency throughout your locks. Interlocking especially, it doesn't allow your locks to expand how big they were going to get. It kind of only allows them to expand to a certain point. So if you do go from palm rolling to interlocking, you're probably gonna have like a fat lock and then it's gonna get skinny where you interlocked it. And then if you go back to palm rolling, it's gonna be fat again. So it's gonna be fat lock, skinny, and then fat again. And that's why I was saying don't change your methods of retwisting too often. I'm not saying that it's bad to change, but don't change it too often because you want, like I said, consistency is key. And if you want your locks to be a consistent size, then you have to be consistent with how you're retwisting your hair. Me, I palm rolled my entire time of being locked. And I think that's why I've had I think that's why my locks have been able to stay consistent in size, also on top of not retwisting too often, not manipulating my hair too much, letting my hair just do its thing, not tying it tight. All this stuff goes into allowing your locks to become one consistent size. But I think one of the biggest things is staying consistent with the method of retwist you are using. I've been palm rolling my entire journey, and so that's why I think I've been able to stay pretty consistent with my lock sizes, besides a few of them at the bottom, in the back, excuse me. But that's only because my hair is thinner around the edges and in the back. And so yeah. Next point. Don't manipulate your hair too much. This includes styling your locks for a retwist. I kind of talked about this in my last point. Don't change your methods of retwisting too often. You don't want to be manipulating your hair too much because that also too can lead to thinning and it can lead to inconsistent in your locks. So don't retwist your hair too much. I'll show you guys an example of retwisting your hair too much. So before I started my locks, I started 2 locks down here to see what my hair would kind of look like when they were locked. And okay. This is one of the locks that, oh, let me push this. This is one of the locks that I started originally. So I have 2 locks that are 7 years old, and then I have the rest of my head is 6 years old almost. It'll be 6 years in April. This is an example of what it looks like to be retwisting too much. So if you can see, my lock is like skinnier. Well, my lock is like fat down here, and then it kind of gets skinny here, and then it gets fat again. You guys can see better when I hold it up. But yeah, it's fat down here, it gets skinny here, and then it got fat again. So this is how you can tell. And like I said, your locks tell a story, because this lock tells a story. Clearly down here, I was retwisting okay, you know, one consistent size, and then it started getting thinner, which means I was retwisting way too much, and it was thinning my locks, and my hair was probably breaking at the roots, which was why my lock got thin. So look at that. Retwisting okay, started retwisting too much. I noticed that I was retwisting too much and that my lock was thinning, and so I'm gonna have to link this video because I fixed this lock by braiding the loose hairs at the base of the lock, and it helped my lock get thicker, if that makes sense. I have a video on how I did this, so I'll link it above. But yeah, I braided the loose hairs back around the base of the lock, and it just locked back and got thicker. So as you can see, my lock got thicker again once I realized that I was retwisting too much, and I was able to fix it. Yeah. So yeah, that is what it looks like when your hair, when you retwist too much. You will see your locks get thinner, and you just always be aware and kind of be in touch with your hair, so you can be aware of changes like this, because you can stop your locks from thinning, but it's really about, it's timely. You have to catch it at a certain point. So yeah, another one, don't hyper focus on how your locks are forming. I know I would like look up videos at, like, if I was 3 months into my journey, I would search YouTube videos, 3 month starter locks, and try to see how they would turn, like how my locks should look. But there really is no right or wrong to locks and how they form, because everyone's hair is different, and locks, I don't know, I just feel like no one has the same set of locks. I mean, I feel like it's just impossible. So don't put pressure on your locks of how you think they should be forming. Another thing, and I know this is like kind of hard, but like everyone's hair will form differently. So as far as numbering of locks, just because I have 70, I think I have 74, just because I have 74 locks and they look like this does not mean that if you have 74 locks that your locks will turn out to look like this. I know in the beginning stages of my lock journey, I found this girl who had 76 locks, and I was like, oh, her number is pretty close to mine. And I just, her locks, I mean, everyone is different. And so her locks were super thick. I necessarily wasn't trying to go for a thick look. I just wanted like medium, I guess. And so when my locks did form, I was like, oh wow, they formed totally different of how hers formed. And we literally had like the exact same number of locks. I started off with 76 and I combined a few. So I think I have 72 or 74, I don't know. But yeah, don't put pressure on yourself for how you think your locks should form and will turn out. Like I said in the beginning, let your locks do its thing. They're gonna turn out how they're gonna turn out regardless, so you just need to learn to accept it and love it regardless. Yeah. Another thing, and this was my last point, and this is super important, don't compare your locks to other people's, especially people who are at like a mature stage. So I'm at 6 years. Don't compare your starter locks to my locks, because I mean, for one, it's not good to compare yourself to other people, because comparing yourself is a thief of joy. When you compare yourself to other, it takes away the joy out of your own experience. And it's just all around just does not feel nice. Don't compare your locks to anyone else's, because like I said, everyone else is at a different point in their locks. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's hair is different. Hair is a part of DNA, and everyone's DNA is different. For that reason, your hair is going to form differently. So don't compare your locks to anyone else's. And like I said before, you're better off with just accepting your locks and just loving them how they're going to turn out regardless, because they're going to turn out how they're going to turn out regardless. It's just the way it is, you feel me? So yeah, I think that was my last point. yeah, that was my last point. I hope you guys got some great tips from this, especially for starter locks. I think I'm gonna start putting out more videos for starter locks and people who are just starting their journey. Welcome to the Loc family. It's such an amazing journey. I honestly, like I said before, I think about starting my locks over all the time for the simple fact of I loved the journey. My beginning journey was just amazing. My hair changed so much throughout the journey. I just loved it at every stage. So if you did just start your locks, congratulations on starting your locks. I wish your journey the best of luck. I'm hoping you will subscribe so you can stay up to date on more lock videos and more locks, tips, and trips that I have, being almost 6 years locked. Anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.